Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to The Element Podcast. What's happening, all my woods people? Currently sitting in Sulphur Springs, Texas. And we may not do too many more podcasts like this, Mr. KC Smith, co-host.
You're moving.
I am.
Moving on up.
Moving on down. Moving south.
Yeah.
Yep, heading to Mexico.
That's good. It's a good place to live. That's what I hear, at least.
Yeah, I've heard,
yeah.
according to the U.S. travel agencies.
Yeah.
Yep.
So where are we going to do a podcast from? Just
Mexico.
Okay. Border?
South of Rio.
Yeah.
No. We'll probably be doing them from Emory a lot.
Ooh.
And probably Alba. You've got a hosting space, don't you?
I've got 2 hosting spaces.
Yeah, so we'll be living a lot closer to each other. Mm-hmm. And probably closer to some public land. So.
Ooh. Now we're talking.
Yep.
But yeah, dude, I'm pumped to be a little bit closer because it was 42 minutes over here this morning.
Ooh.
It's tough.
That's dirty.
Yeah.
And it was
foggy.
pretty early morning. Mm-hmm. And foggy and slick and cold and nasty. This weather got me feeling bad. I don't know if you can hear me breathing. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, this might be one of the last times we do a Sulphur Springs podcast. So y'all soak it in for a second. Okay.
Nice.
Let's see. We've got a live podcast that's coming soon.
Is it this weekend?
It's this weekend.
Oh my!
Yeah. So we need to go ahead and tell people that there is some news that has developed.
Ooh,
what is the news?
So Ryan Busey, who is chair member on the national board, right? Okay,
of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
Yeah, and he's one of the guys who went up there whenever Ted Bundy was doing all his anti-public land speeches and kind of was spitting out cold facts that Ted couldn't handle.
Yeah.
And he is going to be at the live podcast.
Yes.
So,
at least
cool.
We've heard that he is.
Yeah, that's the word on the street.
That's the word on the street. I can't promise
from
nothing.
one land Tawny that this guy might be here.
Yeah.
So
that's a cool thing. We'll be able to quiz him some. So it's going to be a kind of fly by the seat of our pants, I think, deal up there. But
we're used to that.
We're used to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been following my pants around for years.
Yeah. So, but that's going to be cool. We're going to spend all day or all afternoon at that Legal Draft House place. And then Ryan's going to come in a little bit after we start, I think, and kind of jump on the podcast. We're going to talk some public land stuff and talk some localized and some national issues.
Yep. So if you need to know more details about it, feel free to message us on Facebook or you can send an email through our website. But it is at Legal Draft Beer Company in Arlington, Texas. Starts at 2 p.m. And I think they close kind of early, like 6 p.m. or something like that. So what we're going to plan on doing is finishing up that podcast and maybe having all the Texas BHA guys over to like Papacitos or something there in the area.
Chips and salsa.
And eat a bunch of chips and salsa and share some laughs and some stories. And it's going to be a good deal. Also, if you want to be a part of the podcast, like you can show up to this thing and ask questions during the podcast or make statements or whatever you want to do and be a part of it. So feel free. It's an interactive deal, and it should be a lot of fun. So, yeah, come on out to that. Also, we've been doing some gear reviews lately. And, man, I mess up a lot in those things. But, no, they've been fun to put together. And I've had several people say that we're cracking them up in it. So that's good to see. I was hoping that they weren't thinking we were just idiots,
Mm-hmm. They're just on crack.
Yeah, exactly.
Not cracking up.
Exactly. So go check those out. Those are on our YouTube channel under the Element Evals playlist. And there are, I think, like 3 of them so far, and I plan on putting out a few more in the next week or two. And we'll just try to keep those coming out pretty consistent during the off season so that you can see some of the gear we use and how we like it or don't, and make your own decisions on whether you want to buy it or not. So, lastly, I would say that we have also a couple of PLCs that'll be coming out soon that, sorry, it's taken a while to get to, but happened in January and early February. And one of them's got a couple kills on it.
Oh, yes.
So maybe y'all will enjoy that. In the meantime, we've got a guest lined up today that is going to be pretty awesome, I think. Pretty well-rounded individual as far as whitetail hunting goes. And this guy's name's Steven Spurlock. He's not like a huge clout guy, but we're not all about that here anyway. And you don't know him, but afterwards you will, and you'll be like, who is this dude that knows so much? And it's going to be a good interview. So I guess, is there anything else we need to get to before we go to that?
No.
All right. Well, let's get Steven on the line. On the phone now, we have Steven Spurlock of Pale Horse Productions. Steven, you're a southern boy, much like we are, but instead of talking about hunting deer in the pine trees and the greenbrier and the swamps, we're going to talk arid, open plains country, western whitetail hunting today. First, tell us about yourself a little bit, what you do in life, what you do in the hunting space, and then we'll move on to things like why you focus hunting so far from home.
Yes, sir. Well, guys, first of all, thank you all for having me. Great to talk with you guys. My background is in wildlife biology and wildlife management. So managing properties in the Southeast, I did that for a number of years, and I kind of looked around at things and wanted to get out west more, wanted to travel more, and ended up starting a company in the media space that we do outdoor media, short films, photography, that sort of stuff. And anyway, just found a trade there where we could get to spend a lot of time afield, and that's kind of where what I'm doing full time now, and allows us to spend a lot of time in the country I like to be in.
Yep. I understand that totally, man. This is I don't know. It's like the more you get involved in it too, the more addicted you get. It's just a vicious cycle. You know what I mean?
Oh, it is, and that's for me. I think I started spending a week out west hunting a year, and then that kind of grew a little bit, and then grew a little bit more, and it kind of got to be where that's only place I wanted to be in the fall. And, that's where, the coming into the media world was not something that came right away. That was, the hunting came first, the media came second.
Yeah. Yeah, it usually does, just because I think hunting has such a rich history, and the consumer or prosumer market for film equipment is actually relatively new in the spectrum of humanity. So, that it definitely makes sense that's the way it happens for most of us, for sure. But, I mean, to me, it's apparent that you guys have something really good going on, and we'll talk about that later. You do some really great film work. I really enjoyed watching some of it. So,
thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. But I guess you don't spend a whole lot of time actually hunting in Georgia, or any time, I guess, anymore, huh?
I do some. I have a few good friends of mine that manage some plantations here in Georgia that are just phenomenal hunting. And I'll spend, I normally, our season's open through January, and we actually open in September here as well. So I'll do a little bit with those guys in September, and then we try and go for a little while in January. But that's really the extent of the the Georgia hunting I do now is just a week or two, and for me it's filling the freezer, killing a bunch of does and pigs, and all the things that the things that make hunting the Southeast so much different than the Midwest. We get a lot more tags and a lot more things to shoot at down here.
Yeah, yep, we understand. So what's the reason for that, man? What's the allure to the West that's different from home?
Well, I think for me, it all my hunting started with whitetails. I just had a tremendous passion for whitetail deer and deer management, and that started for me very early on. I'm originally from Virginia, but I started when I was in high school. I started traveling to Illinois every summer and spending my entire summer. I worked for outfitters there. I worked for some land managers there in Illinois, and would spend, from the time I was 14, I think I started spending my summers out there. And that kind of developed a passion for, the Corn Belt, for the Midwest, and, just deer management in the Midwest. And, from there, I started every year I'd move a little further west. And, so that kind of ended, I've ended up out on the plains in Kansas. And, so I got that going on. And once again, there's mule deer in that country, but I'm a whitetail guy. I just love big whitetails. So I spent a majority of my time there doing that. And eventually that led into a passion for elk hunting, which is, I tell people, I think my first love is deer hunting. My second love is elk hunting. And, and that's kind of, so I've gotten to where August, September months I spend in elk country. And then from October through December, we try and spend it, deer hunting. And we don't hunt that many different states. I don't bounce around to 4 or 5 different states every fall. I try and, I'll get tagged in 2 or 3 states, and I'm always just looking for that one particular animal to hunt. And whenever we find them, I'll spend an entire fall on that deer. And sometimes I get them, but most of the time I don't. So that's kind of what keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
sure.
man. If you had too much success, you'd just be looking for somewhere new to try. It's kind of like
absolutely.
You find that one good challenge, and it keeps you coming back.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely.
I can imagine that if you're hunting that far from home and you don't get to spend a ton of time out there, which is something that Tyler and I can kind of relate to when we travel to go hunt, the time that you spend in an area scouting and, of course, hunting, but scouting in particular can be very, very important that you are maximizing efficiency and actually getting stuff done as opposed to kind of playing around with it. You know what I mean? And the reason I contacted you is I read a really great article you wrote about postseason scouting. And
yes, sir.
I really appreciated some of your perspectives on things. And, I kind of wanted to pick your brain on some of that. But can you give us like a broad overview of what postseason scouting is?
For me, guys, it's a time where, so during the fall, I'm always very, very concerned about where am I going in my hunting area, as far as where am I applying pressure to the deer I'm hunting? Where am I, for me, in the fall, I really do not want to be putting scent in these areas. I really don't want to be bumping deer. A lot of that is just controlling that pressure in the fall. So from the postseason, this is the one time a year where I'm going to cut loose and go everywhere. I'm going to look at everything and, really dive in and learn some new country versus in the fall. I have a lot of areas and I hunt both public and private land, mostly private, but I do hunt some public. And, I have areas that I just won't go into in the fall because, the wind is never right, or access is very difficult, or, whatever sort of, whatever variables are there that pretty much would allow in the fall. If I go in there, I'm going to bump deer. I just try really hard not to go into those areas at all in the fall. And this time of year is where you can kind of cut loose and go in and learn that country. And you may find that there is a way you can hunt it where you can be minimally invasive and not educate deer. Mm-hmm. And that's, so for postseason, the greatest thing about postseason as far as looking at sign and all that stuff is the woods are naked this time of year, right? There's, the leaves are off the trees, the crops are down, if you're in an area with standing corn and things like that in the summer and fall. all that stuff is wiped out, and you're really able to look at things for exactly what they are. Nothing's going to be hidden, which is a big thing, a big plus to the late season stuff. And as far as postseason, I try and do everything from determining just what areas I want to hunt all the way through hanging sets and being ready for next fall. I really like to have all that stuff done no later than April.
Yeah.
And once again, that gets back to in the fall, I just from September through the end of the season, I really don't want to have to access areas just to have to go. I don't want to have to go into hang sets. I don't want to have to go in. And, I've gotten to even where, I'll put cameras out on some of the areas I hunt, and I will leave them all year. I will go in once to put the camera in. I will go in at the end of season to pull the camera. But I'm not actively going in weekly or whatever to check the cameras, because I just don't want to apply that pressure to the deer. Sure. But that's a lot of, I think that, like I said, the big benefit of the postseason stuff is you just get access and you can look at things without necessarily impacting deer movement during your hunt, which is, I think, the big danger of, and I've done it the other way where I've, just a bonsai trip, found a new place to hunt and gone in and scouted a day, hung sets, and hit, definitely done it that way. And we've just found that the more work we do in the off season, the more success we have in the fall, for sure.
Sure, yeah. So would you say that your postseason scouting is more about finding new locations and new deer, or like reevaluating past mistakes and going in and finding new ways to hunt some of those bucks that you're really familiar with?
Oh, it's absolutely. We get at both of those.
Yeah.
We get at both of those. The first, as far as getting better at the areas we hunt, I mean, this is, things that first thing, I maintain a really detailed hunting journal, and I'll go through that and look at some of the areas I've been hunting and say, man, I really need a set hung here. This is just the time I go and do that. The other thing, as far as hunting, or learning more about bucks I've been hunting, is picking up sheds, especially in my country. And this is a little bit different in more temperate climates. I'm in the western extreme of the whitetail, where if I pick up a sheds and we kill them the next year, in my experience, it's within 400 yards of where I picked up that shed.
Really?
Wow.
And that's absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know why that is, guys. I mean, there's a couple different schools of thought. My personal theory on this is, as the buck ages, I kind of feel like his core area gets smaller. Mm-hmm. And I say that, bucks are just like people. They have different personalities. Some of them are wanderers. Some of them are homebodies. For me, it seems like most of the really, special, big, mature 6-7-year-old bucks end up having a really small core area the older they get. Mm-hmm. So that being said, you pick up that shed this time of year, and most of these deer, I'm not picking up a lot of these sheds on food sources. Most of them are in bedding areas. And if it's a bedding area he's using postseason, odds are pretty good it's a place he feels really good, he feels really safe, and he's going to come back to, quite often in the fall. Mm-hmm. So that's the big thing as far as hunting bucks we know about is definitely the finding sheds and getting set up for, getting set up to hunt that specific buck the following year. No, as far as finding new dirt, I will tell you guys, I think this time of year is absolutely, if you're going to knock on doors and look for access on new property, which we all want new places to hunt. Oh, yeah. This time of year, landowners, you're not going to be in a line waiting to knock on a landowner's door, which is nice. When you pull up, they're not automatically thinking, "Oh, it's another dag hunter." Yeah. And that is helpful. That's definitely very helpful. And building those relationships, especially if you're in states that are majority private land, which is, most of the realm of the whitetail is a lot of private. So building those relationships with landowners, I mean, that's where getting access and building those relationships, that's pretty. I mean, that's as important as the hunting part. Getting access is the biggest. I mean, you can't kill a 6 or 7 year old buck on a property where one doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah.
And building those relationships this time of year just seems to me just to go a lot smoother. Just because you're at a time of year where they aren't getting bothered by a lot of folks for access. They aren't thinking about it as actively as everybody is in the fall.
Yeah. I have a question about that in regards to that, but I want to back you up first. You had mentioned that you keep a detailed journal. Can you go into details about the information you put into that and how you organize that to be able to look back at it? Because we, personally, like we do a short series that we call our Public Land Chronicles. So like every time we go out to public land out here, we throw a video on YouTube, and more than anything, it's for us to go back and watch and remember what happened on this day, or in this area and such. But neither one of us keep a like handwritten journal. So I'm very interested in seeing how you do that.
Yeah, no, and that's, I don't, the main details that I'm interested in noting in my notes there are, if I see a buck, and it's a buck that, I have named, I hate naming deer, but,
you have to sometimes.
Yeah, you have to, just so you don't have to explain them every time.
The big eight,
the big eight,
there's like 4 of those. So what do we do?
I've hunted the Big Ten for like 10 years now. Every year there's a Big Ten.
Yeah.
But anyway, whenever I see that known buck, I'm definitely going to take note of where I saw him, and also I want to look at the weather conditions that particular day, and the biggest thing, wind direction. He was moving in this area at this time on this day with this wind direction. And that's something that once you start to look at, you see some trends with mature buck movement that are very interesting, right? You when you really start to note that, you notice that, what I've noticed, a lot of bucks are moving on a crosswind. They're not walking upwind, downwind. A lot of bucks are moving on a crosswind. And, the only time where I say that those notes are not so valuable is during the peak of the rut. He's moving in places that he doesn't know why.
Yeah.
So I can't really, from those, it's literally what that doe did that day. So for peak of the rut, those notes are not as useful, but for pre-rut and post-rut, which are really my favorite time to hunt mature bucks, I really do not like hunting the peak of the rut. Because of what we just mentioned there, they're so sporadic in their movement that hunting one specific buck becomes very, very taxing, just because he can be 2 miles that way one day, he'll be 2 miles the other way the next day. Versus pre-rut and post-rut, if you see him in an area and he kind of gets locked in there on a food source, he's probably going to be there every day. Which for me, I much prefer to the, during the rut, you're picking those pinch points and those very likely travel corridors. But as far as hunting an individual animal, the odds of him being there, kind of hit and miss.
Right. So are you keeping up with like the barometric pressure and such, or more are you just interested in the wind, like overcast, sunny kind of thing?
And that's, as far as barometric pressure, I don't look at the numbers. I just high pressure, low pressure.
Right. Okay.
That's kind of as detailed as I get there. But yeah, the big thing, wind directions, temperature. Those are, and really, man, it's so much. Wind direction is so much of it that's probably the most important thing. And then as far as taking those notes and actually applying them, I'll go in and I'll spend some time on Google Earth and drop pins on places I've seen the buck, what was going on, and that really helps as far as looking at, because I think as hunters, and I know for me in the past, I've had bucks that I kind of refused to take, I didn't want to swallow the pill and take the real-time information. I had a plan and I stuck with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe I needed to evolve. Maybe I needed to evolve my strategy some.
We ran into that last year, man. So we get that for sure.
No, and that's what, and every buck I've hunted has taught me a little something different. And as far as that real time of evolution of your strategy, I hunted a buck that I think this was probably 100 from 2012 to 2011 to 2014. And he was one of those bucks I could get a picture of anytime I wanted. Man, I have thousands of pictures of this deer, literally thousands and thousands. And with him, I had a good idea where he was living. I thought I had a plan, and I stuck with that plan for 3 years, and I never once saw that deer in the flesh.
Wow. Oh, man.
And, and that's, getting at, well, why you do it. That's why I keep doing it. Because, there are bucks like that out there. And, that story ended. I never saw him in the flesh. The first time I ever saw him in the flesh, he was tangled dead with another buck underneath one of the sets that I was hunting him out of.
Yep.
And that's how that story ended. But, as far as seeing him, I never saw him bump a doe. I just never saw a hair on his body in that period.
Wow. That's crazy, man. That's nuts. But that's very interesting too. I mean, I think there's a lot to be learned from journaling, whether and however you're doing it, and like there's guys out there. I think Mark Drury talks about how he just keeps it all up in the steel trap, and I'm like, dude, there ain't no way I could do that. I got to write it down or video it or something, So.
No, and that's, and I definitely, like I said, I definitely used to do it that way. And I still, man, I don't get everything in, but especially when you sit down with a map and you look at the notes you have and you start thinking about it that way, it just gives you an opportunity to get out of the preconceptions you had about this buck bed's here and moose here, which we all generate about a deer, right?
Yeah.
When we're hunting a buck, we always formulate what we think he's doing. And I think that process just helps me look at it and say, get out of that mindset that this is what he has to be doing and say, well, maybe it's different.
Yeah. So are you printing maps out and writing on them, or are you using more of a digital format and marking pins?
I do both. Yeah, no, I have some properties that I just have, on Google Earth and I drop pins on, and then I have some properties where I have nice aerials and all, and I get them laminated and then I can draw on them with Sharpie or with dry erase, and from there you just that to me for me that's just the best way for me to get out of whatever wrong thinking I've got going on.
Yeah. Well, that's good, man. I'm sorry we had to go down that huge rabbit hole, but I want to also now come back to what you were talking about with permissions and multiple properties and such. Are you, are you focused on that much? Because I know, you've got to find for you, I guess you would need to find a buck to begin a history and then have that chase that you crave. But, are you getting as many permissions to properties as possible and then going and putting out trail cameras on this and trying to find a target buck or how is this? Are you just kind of trying to rely on what you observed last year during the season and then going after a target buck or such?
Well, and with that, guys, there's kind of, I've found bucks that I've ended up hunting, because the biggest thing to hunt a buck, even if you find them, you have to get access. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of put the cart before the horse before, where I found a buck and then went in, done everything I could to get permission to hunt the area that buck was in. Or, it's always nice when I actually already have access and a buck that I'm looking for shows up there, but that doesn't always happen that way. And I think part of what makes that work is just building year to year. I've hunted bucks before that literally I was, running 45 minutes down the road to hunt a different area. And in the headlights at 2 a.m., I almost hit him in the middle of the road. So you mentally know, I mentally note that and then may come back to that area. And, one of the best areas I ever have had access to was a place I was literally driving through to hunt a property that was 45 miles away. And I just always like, man, there's a bunch of deer crossing the road here. This is a little dangerous stretch of road. And anyway, went back in the off season, did not go that fall, but went back in the off season, was able to get some access to some country in there that ended up being really good.
Yeah.
And I think that's as far as looking for new areas and gaining access there, it's something that builds year after year after year. It's something I'm thinking about in the fall. It's something I'm thinking about in the spring, summer. Because at the end of the day, getting that access is everything with whitetails. Being able to hunt the area he lives that's everything. And I would say, once I get done hanging sets and things like that, which I'll be doing here next week, man, it's a lot of talking with the landowners that have given me access to hunt, or I do have some landowners where I lease their properties. It's keeping those relationships current and trying to build more, because that's just, oh man, without those folks, I don't have anything to hunt. I'm not a landowner at this point in my life. I live on an 1.5 acre subdivision lot.
Yeah, I'm right there
So
with you,
that's-
man. I rent a house in 3 acres, which I actually had 2 deer in the backyard last night, so that was cool. But
Yes, sir.
yeah, so whenever you're getting these permissions and stuff like that, where you're making these landowner relationships and stuff, do you just go about it in the just humble, hey, I'm just a poor old country boy from Georgia, and I just want to hunt, or do you do you have an avenue that takes, or something that's worked well for you, and then on that, I guess, like continuing the relationship, what I'm really interested in is how do you continue that that permission, how do you sustain the fact that you can hunt a place for 3, 4, 5 years, and is it about giving gifts? Is it about helping out around the farm, or how's that go?
Well, and starting out, guys, I think just like with any sort of relationship building, I'm looking for landowners that I'm going to get along with.
Yeah.
Just because they're good folks.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I will say is, as far as working with, and I've had situations where that range from, I end up leasing a property, and then I show up in the fall and there's 15 people hunting my lease.
Wow.
I've had situations like that. Those
Yeah.
things will happen, misunderstanding with landowners, and, and instead of trying to take those situations and make them what I want them to be, I just look to work with really good folks that I just naturally want to work with, and it's really hard to take a bad situation as far as access or a lease and make that what you want it to be. You'll spend a lot of time beating your head against the wall, trying to make a relationship with a landowner something that it's not.
Yeah.
So a lot of that just comes to, finding folks that number one, for me, it's really nice when landowners have an appreciation for their wildlife and understand that we want to help them manage their wildlife to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And not all landowners understand that. Some landowners think if they have particularly good deer hunting, or if they've been told they have particularly good deer hunting, they look at them as dollar signs,
Mm-hmm.
which is, whether you agree with it or not, that's the reality of the world we're in now. Is access to hunt quality animals is expensive, can be.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's value associated with that, and I think it's, like I said, for me, it comes down to finding landowners that I just really get along with well. And that's, and for me, the first time I stopped by and talked with a landowner, I may not even mention deer hunting. It's about, building a relationship there. And it's, I definitely don't blitz them with, man, I sure would like to go deer hunting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've learned a tremendous amount about cattle in my country, so we'll talk about cows a little bit. That's always a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Everybody loves talking about cows. But just going about it, and and it's one of those things that some of those relationships, they may take years, and I've had landowners that I've just been so fortunate that I've worked with for almost a decade now.
Yeah.
I've had some turnover. I have some landowners that I go to their kids' high school football games with them, and I have Thanksgiving dinner with them. Folks that started out as more of a hunting relationship have turned into folks that are just near and dear to me.
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
that's really what I'm always looking for is a landowner that appreciates what we're doing and is just going to get on board and be somebody I like to be around to begin with.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, man. And me and Tyler have talked about this. Like, I've reached a point in my life where I do not care to put on a show or be around someone that I wouldn't want to otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, there's just no reason to just have a falsity of a friendship with someone just to try to get something from it. If you don't jive, you just don't jive. And there's plenty of deer in the world to go, hunt elsewhere and do other things.
No, and that's, like I was saying, when I was younger, I think I spent a lot of time trying to make relationships and trying to make situations just something they weren't.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, and I say that, in this experience, I've ended up with landowners that are very dear friends of mine. I've ended up with other landowners who we have a very good working relationship. We speak a few times a year. They do exactly what they're going to say they're going to do. I do exactly what I say I'm going to do. And other than that, we don't have a whole lot of interaction. And I've worked with folks like that for years.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of it comes down to just what kind of landowner you're dealing with. And as long as their goals, as long as they're going to buy into whatever your plan is, man, you can accomplish a lot. And the landowners are a big part of all that, because in my country, landowners can control, when cattle are on and off the property, which for us is a tremendous big deal.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, a whitetail especially is not going to walk through a pasture with 300 cows in it.
Yeah.
Kind of right. I've seen it happen a few times, but very, very few.
Yeah. Yep.
I actually think I saw a clip, maybe on Instagram or something, of like some guys at a feedlot, and there's like 200 steers in this little pen, and there was a whitetail buck just in there hanging out with them, just running around. It was kind of funny, one of those.
That's a special deer.
Yeah. I think he was really rut confused at that point in time or something. I don't know, but anyway. So when you're doing this, like, postseason scouting / acquiring new properties, how much of your scouting do you feel like you do from the road as opposed to like via on, digital maps or talking to people or actually getting out and walking properties? Like, how do you always give properties a chance if like you've seen deer there, or do you look at something from the road and just say, it's just not that huntable and I'd like to go somewhere else?
Yeah, for as far as that goes, and the postseason part of it, I kind of want to get off the road, no matter what it looks like from the road. I really want to shed hunt it.
Yeah,
is really, that's really, if I have a potential new relationship developing, the first thing I'm ever want to ask permission for is to shed hunt.
Yeah.
And from that, like we were talking about earlier, if I'm finding some really good quality sheds on their property, especially if I'm finding a good density of sheds,
what is a good density of sheds? Can you tell me that?
Oh man. In my country where, and this is a little different in the Midwest where I'm at, I'm looking at deer densities that may be as low as 10 deer per square mile.
Yeah.
So for me if I pick up 3 or 4 in a mile of river bottom, and that's, that's the river bottom width and the length.
Mm-hmm.
If I pick up 3 or 4, I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
That being said, my very best places, I might pick up 30 or 40 in that stretch, but that's very, very rare. I have very, very few places that are like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's nice when you need a backpack and you're still carrying them up front stacked. That's a good feeling. But that's very rare places. And as far as evaluating a property, you can walk through, you can look at how much deer sign's there. Shed hunting is just a really good way to look at everything. Number one thing I'm looking for is sheds, but I'm also looking at how much deer sign is there. Are there old rubs, old scrapes? Are there deer beds everywhere? All that sort of information that give me some idea of what the deer density is. And a lot of that comes down to you start to for me, I've been in these areas long enough where I have a pretty good idea in this particular neighborhood or this particular part of this county. There isn't a lot of hunting pressure, and there's a good chance that a buck can live to 6 or 7 years old. And once you identify those areas, you want to be in those pockets. And not every pocket is like that. I mean, there's parts in the counties I hunt that I know are tremendously pressured, and the odds of a buck making it to 5, 6, 7 years old are very, very low. And as far as getting an idea on those trends, that takes years.
Yeah.
It's not something you can figure out in one off season, but
well, you say that, and I just have a little anecdotal thing. There's a place that we went and hunted this year that we walked in, and you could see like 4 stands from one spot on public, and you're
from
like,
our
okay,
stand.
from our stand. You're like, okay, here might be one of those places where you can tell pretty quick that there won't be a really, really old deer, or at least a good chance, But,
absolutely.
But yeah, you're right. That's something that I would imagine. You kind of have to just do a little coffee shop talking and stuff, and see where people hunt, and kind of have an idea of where the pressure is and where it's not. And I would imagine that, like, after being in the West a little bit, I can tell that there's places where it just look like deer country, and there's places that don't, but they all are deer country. Yeah, I'm sure you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
You've got creek fingers going through ag fields, so people are going to flock to those places to hunt deer. But at the same time,
Absolutely.
you can have these big rolling plain hills where whitetails just flourish. It's just their density's a little bit lower, but people drive right by, driving to the cornfields. So those little, things like that you can just pick up on in an area, I'm sure help a ton when you're trying to determine hunting pressure.
Oh, absolutely, man. And that kind of gets back to, can you look at something from the road and really get that clear picture?
Right.
When I first started out west, I wanted the creek bottom cornfield. That's what I wanted. That's where I wanted to be, because coming from the southeast, you look at it and like, well, that's where the deer are.
Yeah.
Now the longer we've been at it, the more it's like, the more I become interested. I'm driving across one of those big wheat flats that's in Kansas that is miles. You can see the road straight ahead of you for 4 miles. And I look over and I see a homestead with a bunch of cedar trees and the kind of old barnyard. That spot has become interesting now.
Yeah.
Versus when I first started, there's no deer ever going to go in there. Well, they're not going to be a lot going there, but the one that does might be the one you want.
Yeah, it might be Granddaddy. That's interesting for sure. I've spent a lot of time in the Midwest as well, and it definitely has, like, seeing KC. We've been up there now a couple times together, and he's gotten, like, very quickly learned that homestead might just have a big toad at it, and he's like, dadgummit, we need to be hunting over there. It's like we can only be in one spot at a time now.
And that's, those spots can be a little demoralizing to hunt, because you sit in there and, you get in there before light, and light comes up and you're looking at the trees that are there. I mean, we're talking about those little wood lots that are an acre or less. Mm-hmm. And you kind of see what's there, and it can be hard to make yourself sit there. But I tell you what, he can show up at any time. And those are the kind of spots that, we were talking about during the peak of the rut. Those are the kind of spots a lot of big bucks will take does to breed.
Right.
They want to split them off. They don't want to be back in the river bottom with, 30 other bucks. Mm-hmm. They look for places like that to push those does, and that's where they end up, tending and spending a lot of their time doing that.
Yeah.
Which is probably the main time of year I love those sort of areas.
Yeah, that's a great point, because we saw something similar this year happen where the spot that we were hunting was, how far was it? Maybe a third or half mile back in on this property from the road. But the couple of days we spent there was like a, 2 or 3 year old half rack buck that had been busted up. and he was like herding this doe up towards the road where he knew no other bucks were going to go, you know. And he was visible to us, but he's just kind of rut crazy. Like he doesn't care. He just wants that doe to stay out of the woods with the other big boys, you know. So
no, he knows what happens when he goes down there. It's
he loses a horn.
yeah.
So
no, and that's man. As far as that peak of the rut hunting, that's what can make it so frustrating. But looking at those out of the way places, you know, when my bucks disappear, you know, they might be on a pattern in October and then they disappear. The places I'll find them might be miles from where their main core area is, and they're generally in places like that.
Yep. And that's a great tip, man, for people. Now, Casey had mentioned the coffee shop talking a little bit. That brought up a point of interest for me. How are you meeting landowners? I know that every once in a while you're going to pass one coming out of his gate on the road, but that happens very few and far between. I mean, I know the more time you spend out there, obviously it's going to happen, but there's guys, you know, that take their rutcation and they may have a time where they can spend a few days out there in the spring. You know, what's the best way to meet new landowners out there, other than just the chance happening that they're coming out of their gate, you know, on the good property that you've been passing by?
Absolutely. Well, you know, I think I will always start out at the local diner.
There you go. Yep.
You know, that's always a good starting point. And, you know, and I'm never bashful in places like that. Just ask local folks, tell them what you're up to, and ask them if they have anybody that they think you should speak with. You know, and it sounds kind of bold and direct, but it's amazing that, you know, what folks are, you know, you're making coffee shop talk. Folks are, you know, if you develop a rapport there, they want to help you.
Yeah.
You know, and especially, and I have found coming from a long ways from home, you know, generally that sort of situation, the first reaction, people look at me and say, "You're here to deer hunt? You came all this way?"
Yeah.
And I say, "Yes, ma'am, I am." You know, and I think, you know, as far as starting there and as far as generating new relationships, you always start with one landowner. Your landowners that you develop relationships with become your biggest allies as far as getting access on new country.
Yeah.
You know, developing that relationship, they know everybody, you know, as far as small Kansas or Oklahoma or Nebraska communities. If you meet one rancher in that neighborhood, odds are very good he knows every single other person there.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, so starting out, I think that's a great place. The other one, ag co-ops are always a great place to stop by and just talk with folks and see if you can get a starting point. You know, those co-ops, every farmer and rancher in the country is going to come in and out of there. And, you know, that's always a good place to check as well. As far as just getting that initial foot in the door, that first contact in that country.
I've noticed, it seems to me that a lot of times in rural areas, like, you know, the Midwest, that people are more than willing to talk because they don't see a lot of new people, you know, and you're kind of like you were saying, you know, you're coming this far to deer hunt, you're an interesting character at that point.
A novelty. Yeah.
Yes. So like, but how do you start? You know, you're sitting in the diner. And I don't know, you may not go out there very often by yourself, but you're sitting in the diner by yourself. Your hunting buddy couldn't make it. He had, you know, move out of his house on the weekend or whatever. You know, how do you do it without being the creepy guy that's been listening into the conversation of the two farmers, you know?
Yes, sir. Well, you know, what I found there is starting out, you just speak with the waitress, get you started, talk about deer hunting, and somebody may want to engage in conversation about deer hunting.
Talk loud,
and you kind of start from there. Oh yeah, no, yeah. You just kind of announce to the waitress you're a deer hunter and see what happens.
yeah.
No, but that's, you know, getting started there. I think it's, you know, I think it's just it's all about getting that first contact, and when you're in a situation like that, I think just being very upfront about what you're doing and what brings you to that country, because especially in these small towns, odds are decent you've already been labeled as an outsider just from the get-go. You don't really maybe have to tell folks that. They probably have a pretty good idea.
Oh yeah, dude.
You know, and that's just getting that started is yeah, I just throw it out there, see what happens.
we That's funny that you say that, because I went with some buddies and we went door knocking. This has been 3 or 4 years, and man, we were looking on the maps, and we found that this particular family owned like a ton of good property. And so we found their homestead, and they're one of the wealthier people probably out there. They had, a pretty big agricultural operation. And so anyway, we went up to the door, and, it's not the most easy thing to do to just walk up to somebody's house in the middle of nowhere and say, "Hey, I'm not trying to rob you, I promise," And so my buddy decides, "I'll do it," whatever. So we chill in the car. We're like, we're not going to try to have like 3 people walk up to this door, And so he walks up there, and the door barely cracks open, and he talks for a second, comes back, and he goes, "Well, the first thing she said was, 'You ain't from around here, are you?'" And he's like, at that point, I felt like pretty much defeated. There was no way it was going to happen for us. So, and she probably had a shotgun behind the door. So it can be tough sometimes.
Doing home visits is, I try not to do a ton.
Yeah.
Just because that's a country where folks don't get a lot of visitors at the house.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different, I have a home office. I work from home. Throughout the course of the day, I might have as many as 3 different people knock on my door trying to sell something, that happens. In that country, that's kind of a strange deal. And being an outsider, I definitely kind of try and shy away from just showing up at folks' places, just because I think it's much better to kind of meet them in the community, or if you run into them on the road working, something like that. It's just, just feel like that's a better way to get started. And then from there, they'll invite you to the home place, and, you're in. But that, as far as knocking on doors just out of the blue, a little bit, that can be a little hit and miss for sure.
So, another question I guess I'd have when it comes to this is, being that we're from Texas, it's like we have a lot of pride in our state. And,
I'm well aware of Texas.
Yes. And so and whether or not you're that guy or not, as a Texan, you are labeled that way. And I feel weird telling people I'm from Texas sometimes. And I don't know if this, I'm just kind of wondering, have you ever noticed where being that outsider, like you say, and being the Southern guy, may label you in the minds of some people as, what are you doing around here? You don't need to be here, or, go back home kind of thing, just kind of like off-putting, I guess.
No, and those stereotypes exist for a lot of states, and that's what I see in my area. If I see out of state plates, odds are very good. There's some Texans in my area. I get a lot of folks from Utah, just because it's so far west. I guess it's closer for them. Mm-hmm. But dealing with those stereotypes, man, I don't really know how to. Some landowners are going to be open and some are not. I really, I haven't experienced, I have experienced landowners that I think thought that, since I was from far away, I had no understanding of what they do for a living. Which is, in all seriousness, I think folks think because I'm not from out there, maybe don't understand row crop farming, don't understand cattle operations, don't really get what these folks' livelihood is. And that's, kind of the first thing that I want to talk with the landowner about is just what kind of operation do you run? How, talk about their farming, talk about their cattle operation, and gain some understanding on that. And I'll tell you, when I started, I didn't grow up in a cattle ranching family. I didn't grow up in a row crop farming family. But you learn about those things, and I think the best way to kind of get past some of those stereotypes is to connect with these landowners on what it is they do for a living. They all take tremendous pride in their operations. Mm-hmm. Farmers and ranchers are some of the hardest working folks I know. and I think finding common ground to connect, so instead of just being a guy that wants to show up and deer hunt, you're a guy that's taking interest in what it is they do for a living, what makes them different. You might be talking to a Hereford guy. Hereford guys are very proud of being Hereford guys.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, I can imagine. You make a good point there. We as whitetail fanatics get like so honed in on finding the next big buck and getting the next property and all these tactical things that go into this, and it's fun for sure, and we enjoy it. But you also have to see how everything pertains to just overall life and like what life is about. And so I guess my point is, on this earth, people are the most important thing in the world. And so being a part of a community that's like not just taking, but giving. So in other words, caring about some guy's cattle operation where you may not really have a huge interest in cattle, but like asking him and trying to be like a brother towards him, and trying to be somebody who cares about and goes to football games, like you said, in the community and watches their kids. I mean, that means a lot to people, and people are the most important factor in the equation of life here, So I think that's a good point to take away from all this that you're saying, especially.
No, that's well said, man. And I think that's, I think the worst approach a hunter can have to getting access is acting as if it's life and death or placing undue importance on it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and this is something, especially as I've gotten a little bit older. I'm 30 now, which
Dang.
I'm still not an old guy, but I've evolved my thinking on it's just a deer. I used to place undue pressure and undue stress on it's just a deer.
Yeah.
And keeping that in perspective and remembering that, just remembering that, I think that goes a lot deeper than just getting hunting access, but that's definitely very important. Very important.
For sure, man. And when you said evolved, I thought you said bald, and I was identifying with that because I am balding, but maybe you have all your hair. But then I understood what you were saying.
Yes, sir.
Oh man, that's funny. But no, I think you just got a great point, dude. And that's one of the great things about going to, out west to hunt whitetails is like. Yeah, maybe the densities aren't as high as some places, but it's a little easier to grasp it's just a deer when you kind of have that feeling you always have a chance of the next 150 walking around the corner. You know what I mean? And not to put some numbers to it or anything, but I feel like, especially like where we live, for instance, like deer hunting is super competitive because everybody's got a 20-acre private parcel that they're just, and everybody's fighting over the very few big deer that are around. And then you go out there, and then there's just wide open spaces. You might not see another person in camo the whole time you're there. And, there's big deer. And it's just that allure of those wide open spaces, just so cool. And it just gives you that feeling. And maybe I'm just a newbie at it, so I just get this little, tingly butterflies when I think about it. But, man, it's just so nice to go to a place like that and just feel free, and that feeling or anticipation of there being a giant mature buck in every creek bottom is just one of the coolest things I've experienced. And I guess that's probably what keeps you going back, huh?
Absolutely, man. Now that's well stated. And as you guys progress and keep doing it more and more, keeping that feeling, just remembering that, and that's, and I will say, as much time as I spent out there, I have bad days where I look around and I think to myself, I cannot see another house. I cannot see another human being. It is frigid outside. What am I doing with my life? I definitely have those moments, but, for me, it's a big part of, utilizing my time there, just remembering that feeling and how much that means to me. That's what, if I ever lose that, stopping going, man, because that's why, it's that anticipation and that just looking at something different and that sense of awe, that big open space. That's why you do it. The deer are almost secondary. The deer definitely almost become secondary. But that's really, really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think that like the drive that keeps you going back is like the age class of the bucks, or do you really enjoy the fact that there are big antlers out there?
I would say I think I've once again evolved my thinking on that. When I started, I think I won't say score mattered a lot more than it does now, but I thought about score maybe. For me at this point, I want to hunt mature bucks that are old.
Yeah.
And for me, there is no more exciting moment in a hunt, and if it's not even whenever we kill one of these deer, that's a great feeling and all that. When I pick up the binoculars and I look and I'm trying to figure out what buck it is, and all of a sudden I recognize him, that is the coolest feeling, the best feeling. Just have the opportunity to spend that much time looking for this one animal and plan it all out, and then you go there and you see him. And for me, quite honestly, guys, I'm not at a point in my career where I'm killing that deer a lot. Most of the time he gets away.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out that whole closing part, but real fortunate, got a few of them, but generally speaking, those bucks, when they get this incredible age on them, where they're 6-7 years old, they may have a live weight over 300 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I always look at for. The score part, I would love. I've never killed a buck that netted Boone and Crockett. I would like to do that. It's on my list of things I would like to accomplish. Not so much that it's because I want a net booner, or even that I will ever get them officially scored. I don't get any of my deer scored because it just doesn't matter that much to me. But just getting a deer that, the whole point of the Boone and Crockett system is to recognize animals that are incredibly unique for their species.
Yeah.
And, and that's what it's about for me. But yeah, no, I think, big old bucks I love big eights. Big eights are my favorite. And a little bit of trash and split brows. And those are the things that get me really excited, are old bucks that have just survived. They've survived a bunch of winters. They survived coyotes. They've survived me chasing after them for a few years. Which is, that's the cool kind of bucks I definitely want to be hunting.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that, like that buck that Tyler killed this year, the hunt I was on, I was filming, so I had plenty of time to look at antlers, and I didn't, it wasn't like, okay, I got to prepare for a shot, but I was so just taken by the sheer body size and neck size of that animal that, like, I didn't really realize, what he had on his head, just because he was such an impressive beast. And it was just so cool to see that deer come in and just, rule the roost, and be just a big old mature buck. And it was just pretty awesome.
So kind of, I guess, briefly back to scouting. Are you scouting alone most of the time, or do you kind of have a hunting partner or a team kind of mentality there?
Just because I've picked a career path where I always have more time than everyone. I'm generally by myself.
Okay.
I do have some really good friends that I hunt with in the fall, but as far as my scouting, my number one hunting partner is a guy who's super, super into turkey hunting, like turkey hunting on a level that I've never seen before.
Okay.
So it's hard for me to get him out to go look for sheds with me.
Yeah.
He's saving his vacation. He's saving that for turkey season. And he does come out and deer hunt in the fall. But, most of that, I make, it's 19 hours from my house to the area I like in Kansas. And I've made that drive alone 3 or 4 times a year for going on a decade now.
Wow.
It does get that part. I really wish I had somebody to split the drive with. That's for sure.
Yeah, I could imagine. Wow. Well, another thing I guess I wanted to ask is just about access in open country. How are you approaching these properties when it comes to accessing a stand location, or maybe it's in the way, the position or the place that you hang the stand. But what are your main tactics there as far as accessing without being detected by deer?
Well, I think it kind of gets to some of the trends that I've seen in buck movement. Is honestly, there's no perfect. If the wind is perfect for your stand and you actually have in your mind exactly where the buck's bedding and he is in fact bedded there, if the wind is blowing directly from him to you, odds are very good he's not coming by you that day. So generally with my tree stand locations, I try and hang a fair number, and generally I'm looking at hunting that deer on a crosswind, and generally the plan is, if it goes to plan, which sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, is you're going to kill that deer before he hits your downwind, before he gets downwind.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of that comes to, we hang a bunch of sets, and I have sets that have been in trees for years that have never been set in. I have sets that, I have one particular tree on one of my leases that gets hunted once a year and has produced a buck over 150 every year.
Wow.
And that comes down to just waiting for that perfect time, that first time in, first sit, always going to be your best chance in that sort of country. And, so I think it's just being very conservative in how you hunt your sets. And actually, I used to only hang sets. I'd sit there and think, well, I want to climb up this tree and I don't want to ever be seen or smelled by a deer. Mm-hmm. Right. That was my criteria. I can't be seen, can't be smelled. I got to be able to get in and out without doing either of those. So what that pretty much did was for archery hunting, made me a spectator.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, it took me out of the game as far as actually harvesting, some of these mature bucks. Mm-hmm. So I've gotten a little bit more aggressive in where I will hang sets, to where I will think, hey, this is a major bedding area. On this sort of wind, he's probably going to come to this food source. I can roll the dice and hopefully get him killed the first time in before he smells me.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah, very cool, dude. Well, I'm sure that I can take some of those tips and kind of apply them even to here in the deep woods of Texas. It's that's something that we've struggled with in the past, is just kind of being on the fringe and just observing deer. It's a big difference in being a hunter and an observer. And you got to figure out how to be a hunter sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, and in my country, I have the benefit where most of this stuff I spend 85% of my time sitting behind either 50 or 40 power binoculars.
Oh, man.
And that's what, that's where the game is won and lost. There's very few times that I go sit in a tree that I'm blind as far as, I have no idea what's been hanging out here. Mm-hmm. And that's something we have in that country that we obviously don't have in the Southeast. Is that ability to sit back and be a totally passive observer, where no matter what you do, you're a mile from the deer. He doesn't know you're there.
Yeah.
And having that's kind of one of the things that I like so much about that open country, is you can be an active participant without actually having to jump in and take those risks as far as, bumping deer and applying pressure. Mm-hmm. And sit way back and just wait.
Yeah, man, that's just awesome. I miss the open country already. I'm ready to go back. Yeah, so, dude, it's been great talking to you, and you have so much insight. It's unreal, like how much experience and just cool stories you have. But if you can leave our listeners with like your best one postseason scouting tip, what would that be?
Whew, man. Well, I would say, as far as the best thing to do postseason, I think you look at it holistically, and you just want to accomplish everything from looking at new dirt to picking up sheds to scouting for your individual bucks. And if, I could tell guys one thing, it's instead of taking that time in August and September, mm-hmm. which is when a lot of guys like to do that, I think that I would switch that to February, March. You're just going to gain a lot more valuable information versus in the summer months when you're dealing with a totally different world than you will be in 3 months when you're hunting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And less ticks and stuff too.
Not hot. There's a lot of benefits. March, and it can be a little bit cold, but I've gotten a lot of really nice, 60-degree days to shed hunt in that period. That's nice.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would rather walk around in 40 degrees than 90. So I
Absolutely
totally get it. Well, like Casey said, it's been awesome, man. Now, we haven't really hit on it much, and maybe we'll have to do a part 2. But you guys do some pretty awesome film work and such. And apparently you guys have a film that is releasing like soon this week, right?
Yes, sir.
What's the
Yeah,
deal?
no, we have a film coming out Friday that our title partner for the film was NWTF, which is National Wild Turkey Federation. We did a film where we followed them. My best friend that I deer hunt with is attempting to do what is called the U.S. Turkey Slam,
Cool.
which is killing a turkey in all 49 states that have turkeys.
Wow.
So, we spent almost 30 days filming last spring. We went everywhere from Nevada to Virginia and in between. And, and there's a fair number of guys that have completed that. But we worked with two of my good friends, my best friend growing up who's attempting it, and another really good hunting buddy of mine who both are attempting this and maintain full-time jobs. They hunt on the weekends.
Wow.
They scrape to pay for their tags, and and they literally go. We made trips out west where we flew in on Friday nights and flew out Sunday afternoons, just trying to help trying to get all 49 done.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've got a short film about that coming out with NWTF on Friday, and we're really excited about that. And I think it's a film that really gets at who we are as filmmakers and the stories we want to tell. I personally love these guys that are doing these exceptional things, doing everything else in life. They're not necessarily professional hunters. They don't get paid to do this. But they love it, and they give up so much, sacrifice so much to be able to do it. And those are the kind of stories as a company we really want to capture and tell.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see it, man. I got to watch, you sent us a little teaser, but I watched the whole Gray Light film, and it's really, really good, man. Really well shot, really just incredible footage in there. And I suggest anybody go watch that is interested in film work and high quality, outdoor footage. And we will definitely put that link in our notes underneath the podcast. So if you're listening, make sure and just drop down and go ahead and click on that in the next couple minutes. But how would somebody that is interested in seeing the turkey film, how would they find that?
Yes, sir. So that will be on NWTF's social media on their Facebook page. It'll also be on our other partners' pages, which are Mossy Oak, Avian X, Danner Boots, Surefire Flashlights. A bunch of companies came on board to support that film, and we'll all release the film on their social media channels simultaneously on Friday.
Cool, man. Well, that's awesome. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited for you guys, and I'm excited to have a new friend in you and be able to vicariously live through your success next year, I'm sure. So.
Oh, well, guys, great talk, and really enjoyed y'all's time, and just appreciate you guys. You guys are doing a cool thing here.
Well, thank you. Back at you, man. We'll be talking soon.
Yes, sir.
All right, see you. Well, I'm ready to go scouting.
Let's go, man. Dadgummit. Can you imagine finding 30 or 40 sheds?
My dad and I shed hunted for like 2 days in 2010 or 11 maybe, and we found 23 or 4, I think, in 2 days on our place there. But since then, never seen anything like that at all. So, yeah, I can't really imagine like walking a mile of creek bottom and finding 30 or 40 sheds.
That would be so cool.
I think we should just like maybe put out like a Kickstarter to fund a shed hunting expedition where we go find places that have 30 to 40 on it.
Let's do it.
You think we could get it funded?
Nope.
I don't either. But it would be awesome.
It would be cool. I know that I've walked a lot of creek bottoms in our general area here and have found not that many sheds in our general area here. So it's just cool to think that the places like that do exist sometimes.
Yeah.
And it helps whenever you're looking for, like 60-inch sides as opposed to 30-inch sides.
Right.
They are bigger and
Yes,
easier to see.
they stick out a little better. Yeah, for sure. Shed season is coming, man. It's just about upon us. I mean, I know there are people finding sheds already, and we saw a shed buck when we were, when we went back through the Midwest several weeks ago. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of deer, I'm sure, holding that'll hold up until early March, but it's coming, and it's going to be fun, and hopefully we can talk some shed hunting on the podcast soon. But in the meantime, if you guys would go to iTunes or our Facebook page and give us a review, we would appreciate that tremendously. Like I said, it's easy to do on Facebook, and that helps us out there. iTunes obviously helps the podcast directly. But yeah, that would be great. Also, don't forget the live podcast coming up this weekend. We will really, really want you to be a part of that. And man, do you have any final thoughts or anything? When are we going to go hang some more cameras?
I think we're going to have to do it in the dark. We don't have any time in the day.
This is a brutal week. But I just found out that some of my weekly planned activities have gotten pushed back, so I may actually have the opportunity sometime to go.
You got a little time. That's good.
I mean, if you're not working today, I'm not saying anything, but
I got to work today. I know it. That gum work just gets in the way of everything.
Yeah.
But that's all right, man. I'm just excited about the spring. I'm excited to go see what we get on our cameras. And then, dude, I was driving across the lake this morning. It was slick as glass, and I got the fishing itch.
Dude, there's something about when the lake is slick as glass that looks like, man, we should be fishing, but it probably isn't the best conditions.
Fish is good.
Yeah. It's kind of like probably happens in the whitetail woods sometimes when you're like when it's like blowing like 15, 18 miles an hour, and you just feel like we did that morning when we were like, man, what the heck? I'm not even going to hunt here this afternoon. And all of a sudden, a giant but not a monster appears 500 yards from you and walks straight to you. Sometimes the days that like feel the best and look the best aren't the best. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately.
That's all right. Because any day is a good day to be out there.
That's what I think, man. Except for like last night, I didn't really want to be out doing repairs on my house. I mean, that wasn't a good
That's
night
not really out
to be out
there. That's a different. The there in this sense is the outdoors.
We're out in the elements, though.
That's right.
And they were not good elements, unlike this podcast. So anyway, we plan on getting some more trail cameras out soon. We've got several out. We'll be checking. And hopefully we'll just keep you guys involved in the PLCs and just kind of scratch that itch until it's basically time to go fish lakes that are slick as glass and the fish actually bite. So until then, I guess, unfortunately, we have to leave this thing and leave you guys. So God bless you. Love you guys for listening. Thanks a bunch. Thanks for the reviews. And remember, this is your element.
Living it.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.